Okay, listen up. This is lecture number 9. We've been doing case studies for the past 3 lectures. We're going to have a change of pace now. Talk about engineers' rights and responsibilities, but that's going to be set in the context of the workplace. At the last attendance question, I asked something of the sort: will you rate the level of professionalism in your engineering work environment that you have worked in? So Veronica tabulated the numbers that you provided, and the average came out at 7.5, between 1 and 10, where 10 is highly professional. So in this situation, which fine, of course, is the extremes, very professional environments. What's sad is find the very unprofessional environments, and so we're going to be discussing that today, and what it would mean to have an unprofessional work environment. So, professionalism workplace. The first thing it involves is competence. I mean, if you're working around a bunch of incompetent engineers or incompetent people, it lowers the level of professionalism significantly, and really degrades the quality of the workplace. It's really can be quite painful. But it also involves a sense of fun and excitement. Do your coworkers like what they're doing? Are they excited about it? And that sort of influences you, and your excitement influences them. Is there a good tone set? Do people have good conduct? Well, in my experience, conduct or good behavior in the workplace is often heavily influenced by what the boss does. If she goes out every lunch and gets drunk and then comes back to the workplace, that becomes a problem. Then everybody starts going with her, right? If he goes out every Friday afternoon and golfs afternoon rather than doing his work, okay, then everybody does that. So a lot of what happens in the workplace is influenced by what the boss does. Many of you people will end up being the boss, okay? So you want to keep that in mind. And unfortunately, people will follow your behavior sometimes, even if it's not good. It reminds me of being a parent these days. I got 4 kids. It reminds me of what my father used to say to me is, don't do what I do what I say. Okay, but that doesn't always work. Okay, so your main responsibility is top performance and professionalism. So what are the problems at work? Some things you'll think matter and some do not, and there's many different perspectives. For instance, let's talk about dress code for a minute. In the engineering workplace, 2/3 of you roughly have been for co-ops or internship. Is how many? Usually that means business casual attire, usually. And raise your hand if that's the case. Business casual meaning maybe, all right, that. Are some of you have something about that, like it's sort of required or expected that you would wear a tie every day? Raise your hand, please. Okay. No one raised their hand. Okay. I can tell you that's changed. 20 years ago, about half of them raised their hand. Now, there's the other end where there's essentially no requirement. Ripped up jeans, something like I'm dressed in, or worse, maybe it's better. Ripped up jeans, ripped up t-shirt, whatever you want. How many people had that environment? Raise your hand. Somebody's kind of going like that. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of engineering workplaces is very laid back, and some people speak very positively. Can someone raise their hand, comment on that? Did they like it, or would they like to dress up more? Or was it just fine? Was it conducive to good work practice? Or does it just not matter? Someone like to comment? Yes, in the back.
So I feel that it worked really well where I worked because everyone could just wear whatever they were comfortable in, with the exception of a whole lot of other things that caused a lot of static because we were doing a little static.
Okay. So it worked well for you and in your work environment. Somebody else want to comment? Yes.
So I was at a relatively professional environment. There were very few people, only the high ups, would wear suits and ties. Everyone else would wear reality, and when you're working in a lab environment, you don't want something that's going to restrict you.
Right. And a lot of times those, I would comment, I'm not sure in your case, in my experience, the higher ups you're talking about are typically non-engineers or business people, and the traditions over there, they're much more formal.
No, these were PhD engineers.
Oh, really? Wow, we're in coat and tie. Because I have my PhD, I'm not about to put on a coat and tie. There's a couple reasons, but at the university, if you see me in a tie, it's because I'm trying to get money from something.
Someone who's not an engineer.
Yeah, take my engineer or jury duty. No, forget that. I do it for a funeral too. It's really not a wedding. Yes.
I feel like it's all if you're in front of a client, the business casual is best, but if you're not going to be in front of the client at all, then you might as well dress how you dress.
All right. Did everybody hear what he said? He said if you're in front of the client, you might want to wear business casual, but otherwise, what does it matter? A lot. Yes.
My company, they had like a required dress code that I was given at the beginning of my internship. It's like you have to wear dress pants, you have to wear a shirt tucked in, and they had like dress code for women as well. And then they have a casual Friday.
They had a what?
They had a casual Friday.
Yeah.
Where you can like just wear shoe clothes, but it has to be.
And it kind of makes me want to laugh because I suspect that the persons that set that up were the old timers, right? I mean, it's just changed a lot. I mean, but this issue with the client, I want to come back to. Be careful with that one because I have this difficulty myself. Sometimes I am not well dressed enough to work with sort of a client, so to speak. And you don't want to offend anyone, especially certain persons from more traditional backgrounds, maybe cultures, may have higher expectations for what you dress in. I put myself in an uncomfortable position in another country that way. Where sort of like everybody's, whoo, I'm like, sitting back in gym shoes, So you got to be careful because, of course, you don't want to offend anyone, but it's also like, oh, you got to be kidding me, I got to put on a tie. Now, from other countries, I don't know how this is. Is there someone from another country that would like to comment? Is this all surprising to you? In my travels, I have certainly found Americans to be the most laid back I've seen so far, and that includes parts of Asia, Europe, South and Central America. I mean, the Americans are definitely just more casual. I don't know, if someone from another country want to comment on that? Was there something? Yes.
In the Middle East, from my dad's side, my cousins would make fun of me if I wore shorts at any time. So.
Yes.
Like
The shorts issue is an interesting one. I mean, I could get into a lot on that. I had been to some South American countries quite a bit, and it's just amazing. These are very warm climates. Nobody's wearing short pants. It's a cultural thing. It's not as conservative, And they're not wearing khakis either. They wear dark clothes. So if you're doing cross-cultural engineering, which many of you will end up doing, you got to be especially sensitive in that case to dressing appropriately as to not offend too, because I don't think you want to offend. So let's next talk about office space and decor code. Now, in this case, what's acceptable can be a pretty difficult issue. I've had some women in this class come to me after class and explain their work environment had a lot of porn in it, posted porn. And it really torqued them off, but they weren't about to complain. Okay. Now, clearly, I'm not here to judge whether porn's right or wrong. That's not my role. My role is to ask whether it's professional or not. I think it's clear that it's not professional. I think it's very clear in my opinion. Because you can offend others at the workplace, clearly, and not even know it. All right? So the environment that's set is set by many, many different things. And that goes for the women too, posting porn. It goes both ways. Not just picking on the guys. Next, teamwork. So what you want is an ethical corporate climate. You sort of want an environment of professionalism and ethics, where you acknowledge, for instance, the complexity of the problems, the various people that are involved, departments, administration, clients, where ethical language is acceptable. So you really, as an engineer, as I've been trying to emphasize, one of the most important ideas in the class, I think, is you have moral autonomy. You stand on your own 2 feet, you say what's right or wrong. And there's responsibility to do so. Okay? And, you have to have an environment that sort of allows that. And everybody helps set the tone of what's possible, not just the boss. Now, some examples are lunch break or break lengths, work diligence, and timesheets. How many people that with co-op saw people taking long lunch breaks, longer than the hour or whatever? Please show of hands. Okay, a number of you, probably 10. Work diligence is another thing. How hard are you at work? How hard are you at getting the job done? How careful are you about things? Okay. Timesheets is something. These are cheated on many times by people. I've heard over the years a number of cases from this class. I've seen it myself when I was in the engineering industry. This, especially when it comes to government work, you timesheets for the government to account for your work time and et cetera. And sometimes it's not just an individual cheating on a timesheet. The boss is asking the individual to cheat on their timesheet, which is a terrible situation to be in. So procedures for conflict resolution are important. At large companies, they usually have what we call an ombudsman person that you can anonymously go to make complaints about ethical problems and so forth. In small companies, they don't have those. They don't have the luxury of having those. And that's unfortunate. That's just a fact. It's nice. At OSU, I have a couple of channels I can go through to make complaints. If I see unethical behavior by a faculty, for instance, there's channels I can go through that are anonymous to make a complaint. And with respect to students, there's channels too. So that's important. Okay. Now, when you go look at the code of ethics that's created by a company, it typically has a tone that's different from the ones you saw in this class, like the NSPE code or the IEEE code. It typically has a tone is you're doing what's morally right as long as if you're making us money. There's a little bit of a tone of that in there sometimes. So you got to be careful. I think you should be, you should critique the engineering organization's code of ethics. You shouldn't just blindly follow it. There's nothing wrong with critiquing it. Loyalty and collegiality. Well, we talked about this acceptance of a job offer. What do you owe in the company? So I already done that case. As an employee, you have to fulfill contractual duties to the employer. I mean, they're paying you. It's only fair that you do your work. Okay. So question, has corporate loyalty to employees degraded? How easily can you get fired if you're performing well? Does this imply that your loyalty should degrade? It creates a bad tone, certainly. When I talk to colleagues, either past, like friends that are in the engineering industry or that are supporting me on contractual work, people in industry, they feel that corporate loyalty to engineers significantly degraded in the last 25 years. It used to be, it was unheard of for an engineer to get laid off. I went and interviewed at IBM years ago in New York, and they bragged during the interview that they had never in the history of the company laid off an engineer. Okay. That's happening now. Okay, this stuff is happening, and it's rather unfortunate sometimes. So, what should your attitude be? You sort of want to willingly seek to perform duties. That can help you get ahead in the organization too. You sort of don't want to feel like you're being forced to do something. You're sort of enthusiastic. That's sort of a type of loyalty. And I can tell you that over a long time period, a good attitude is difficult to maintain. How many of you people saw the old engineer at the company that's just like, I don't know, I think they're clinically depressed. I mean, they're just like, and they just complain. How many people saw that? Raise your hands. Yeah, it's kind of depressing, isn't it? Especially trying to work. I've seen this too in a number of instances, and it's tough working with these people. You know, it's like nothing will work. There's always a problem. You're fighting against them. Sometimes they're the boss. Oh boy, you know that can make your life really unpleasant and squelch your enthusiasm and all kinds of things. Managers and engineers. So it's important to respect authority, but your demands for professionalism and professional tone set by the boss in the workplace are important. For instance, porn in the workplace. If you have porn in the workplace, what should you do about it? I mean, you could, first step, go to the person that's posting it. Okay? Second step, if that's not working, go to the boss, and get it fixed. So authority is important, and of course that's like competence, and is a key aspect of professionalism, and something that should be respected. My experience in working on engineering teams is it's rather interesting. The boss is no more likely than someone else in the room to be the most competent person at any point in time. They may try to impose their authority, but the technical competence may lie elsewhere. And my experience with engineers is they are very good at sniffing out technical competence and listening to it. Okay, engineers have that. At least the engineers I've worked with have always had that feature. I think generally people are good at that, and you go with it. I mean, if someone's the most technically competent, support them and try to learn from them. So, question is whether you're going to have company orientation. What kind of company orientation is there going to be? There's some that are very customer oriented, or finances and marketing oriented, very business oriented. Some are more engineering oriented. I worked at a large company. It was very engineering oriented, and the way they did it is they set up a management structure where engineers were hired and they could advance in 2 tracks after a certain point in their career. They could advance on a business track or an engineering track, become a technical leader or a business leader. And engineers went both directions. What this did is the engineers got tired of the technical details and went the business route. So you end up with a highly engineering-oriented company. It facilitated communications, I think, and made the company effective. So how does the company manage conflicts? Oh, it's difficult. I talked about the ombuds person and organizational structures, but if you're in, most of the conflict you're going to see is right within your own department or group. And when there's such conflict, the boss usually has to manage that conflict. And some bosses are not good at managing the conflict. So you can get yourself in very sticky situations. This is a whole topic that could be discussed for many classes. But generally, in my experience, is communicate. Talk to people. There's conflict, get talk going. People generally are pretty good at resolving things. There are isolated cases where some individuals, though, are completely unreasonable. Okay, I'm not saying that's not possible. So confidentiality and conflict of interest. There's a difficult thing of what to keep secret. Usually we label information, a company proprietary information. This is often stamped on every page of a document, for instance. Uses the template for a document, like in a PDF. So companies have a right to keep information proprietary to a certain extent. Of course, all the technical details. Now, if they're trying to protect information that would, for instance, show that their products are killing or hurting people, that's a different matter. Then your responsibility to the public supersedes your responsibility to the company. Okay. So this issue comes up sometimes in government practice, and we'll talk about it later on with respect to working under the agreement that you're going to keep things secret as defined by the military. Unfortunately, and even with some students in this class have said, they've done unethical things and couldn't say anything about it because it was under secrecy. Okay? So it can get rather complicated. If you're changing jobs, your confidentiality to your old employer does not cease. Remember the case with the software, the guy transferred the software from the old company to the new company, all the problems it caused. But it's difficult sometimes because you go work for a company for 10, 15 years, you're going to learn a lot about that company, the products, every detail. And then you get hired by another company. And what do? Dump everything out of your brain? No. So it can be difficult about these confidentialities. I think basically what's in your head is yours in a lot of ways, as long as it's not in your head that's giving away their secrets to give them competitive advantage, for instance. You own a lot of the information that's in your own head. Not everything, but management policies. So do you mark documents as proprietary? You should make sure that the right documents are marked as proprietary. Not everything's marked as proprietary. When it should or shouldn't should be clear to you. Okay? Next, some of you, how many people have signed an employment contract as a co-op? Raise your hands, please. You know what I mean by contract? They're saying all kinds of things in these things. Okay, I've signed them before. Did you read the fine print? Usually it's like, there's ask a few questions up here, and then there's like a whole page or more of this really dinky little print that you can hardly even read. Did you read fine print? Yes or no? I did not. Okay? I was like, forget that. Which is, that's too bad, but it's the way we do things. We're busy, And they don't give you the time to read it anyway. Usually you're sitting in the HR office, and they're saying, here's some forms for you to sign. Then you need to go to your interview, and you don't have time. Example, do you work, this is an issue we'd already discussed. Do you work at home at night on something? And let's say you're programming an app. Let's say you're building some contraption in your garage, whatever it is. Engineers do these things. They tinker. And then who owns those? You better be very clear with your company, because if you start making a lot of money, then they're going to want a piece of the pie or all the pie. Okay? So as long as you have clear policies, it helps set a nice professional tone and setting clear boundaries, so that everyone knows what is right and what is wrong. So in conflicts of interest, these are situations that, if pursued, can keep employees from meeting obligations to the employers. So gifts, bribes, and kickbacks. Now, this issue arises most often in engineering organizations when, say, you're building some contraption or something, and you need parts. So you go to suppliers. Now, those suppliers stand to make a lot of money if you pick them to be your supplier, because you're going to buy things from them. So typically what a supplier will do, and this is not just for engineering, it's for all kinds of sales, is they start giving you incentives to pick them. For instance, the lightest thing they'll do is they'll take you out to lunch. Okay? Let's say it's a lunch at McDonald's. We're never going to buy from them, right? Let's say it's a lunch from, pick your favorite fancy restaurant in Columbus. And what if they take you out golfing, pay the greens fees, which are expensive, top golf course in Columbus, and a fancy dinner, and you can bring your husband along or wife. Okay? So the question becomes, when does it become a gift, bribe, or kickback? It's actually very complicated, right? It's very complicated. Now, how many people have gotten things like I just mentioned, dinners? Is there anybody? Raise your hands. Yeah. Did it cross the line is the question, right? No. A lot of times it doesn't cross the line. In other words, they're all giving you these things. So the key is whether by giving you something personally, is it going to change your professional judgment about what part to pick and which supplier, right? That's the crucial issue. If it's not influencing that, it's going to be hard to argue that you're being unprofessional on that. Right? I mean, take the lunch. Now, this is different. Any other comments on that? This is different when it comes to the U.S. government. So the U.S. government does not allow its employees in the military or whatever to take anything No lunch, no pen, nothing. Yes?
Contractors cannot drive government employees.
Exactly. I mean, a contractor can't drive a government employee. It's incredible. Now, how many people have seen government employees, on the other hand, ignore these things and take these things? Anybody? I have. Yes, you have. Yeah. It does happen. It's a lot less than it used to be, apparently, because they've cracked down on this thing. So the point of bringing up the government case, though, is there are different standards for different organizations. You have to follow your organization, too. If your organization says nothing, just do nothing, right? It won't hurt to let your company pay for lunch rather than you, or rather than them, or rather than you. I mean, it's just not worth it. Interest in other companies. So this is complicated because, if you're investing in one of the suppliers we were just talking about, you have an vested interest to give them business, right? So that money's going to flow back to you. All right, so clearly there's a conflict. That's a very clear conflict of interest. I'm sure it happens at times. And then there's the issue of insider information. This is complicated too because, engineers are working all the time on high-tech products that people make a lot of money on, right? And if an engineer has that information, he or she can go out and invest in the stock market or disinvest and stand to make a lot of money, right? A good example is years ago when the computers, I don't know if you remember this, but it used to be in PCs. When Microsoft came out with a new OS, okay, the best thing in the world for you to invest in was what? Some subset of people knew this. I kicked myself for not thinking about it. What was it? Memory chips. Because it was going to be a memory hog. And for many years that came out, and people started investing in memory, you stand to make a lot of money. If you're the engineer, at Microsoft, knowing when that's going to get released, you stand to make a lot of money in that case. So what are our rights as engineers? Of course, we have our standard rights, not to be discriminated against and all of that, to be treated as equals. But we also have this right of professional conscience. That means your professional conscience means that's not just about your personal moral convictions, but it's your moral convictions as they relate to technology and its design and the safety of the public, etc. You have a right to express your opinion, what we've been calling moral autonomy. You have a right of refusal too. So you can refuse to be unethical just because you view it to be that way. It's your choice. It's not anybody else's choice. All right. You have a right to recognition and fair pay. Now, fair pay is a tough one. In this country, I don't know what's happening these days. Maybe somebody can help me on this. But I've had friends in the past, maybe 20 years ago, where if they were from another country and they took a job as an engineer, they'd get less pay, a significant increment less. And this was justified by saying that they were going to have lawyers paid to get the green card for that individual. But the differential was more than that. Okay? Is this happening today? Anyone? Raise hands. Not seeing it happen. Okay? Fair pay, too. I think all of you, before you accept your job offer, should go look at the Engineering Career Services website. They have a XLS file you can download that says what the average starting salary was for engineers of various disciplines last year, to get a sense of what's a fair offer for pay. Okay? I've seen students come to me and say, "This seems kind of low. Why are they offering me this? It doesn't seem quite fair." I said, "Well, go look that up." And when you go look it up, you say, "Yeah, they're not hitting the market value." So you got to be careful on that. That number, the average for last year, gives you a good indication. Employee rights. So you have a right to privacy in computers. Perhaps. Yes?
What was the number for last year?
Oh, I forget. I'm sorry. Has anybody looked at it? Average starting salary ECE last year, I would guess, is probably between 60 and 65K. Is that right? 62. Yeah. It's right around there. Okay. So there's a very sticky issue about your computer at work that's owned by your workplace. They own the software too and the hardware, let's say. And can they then look in and see what you're doing? Okay? And you know that happens. Some places have policies that they must be able to open. In particular, what's coming up in this top bullet is the issue of snooping on two things: your email, typically, any social media, or maybe the third thing, what websites are you visiting? Okay? And that's being done, so you had better be very careful. Because why? I mean, if you're doing sort of personal things, you're wasting the company's time and money then. And they have a right then to do something about it. You have a right to equal opportunity, non-discrimination, right not to be sexually harassed, a right to affirmative action. Affirmative action, let me be clear here what this means in the context of our book. What it means is if I'm a white person and you're a black person, then we have equal competence. There's you hire the black person. That's what it means in the book. Okay? But that assumes equality in terms of everything, which is very difficult to assess, of course. So, have you whether you've seen discrimination or sexual harassment in the workplace is something I'm going to ask at the end of the next class period, because I know a number of you have seen it. If based on past years, that's what is typically the case. The question is, what should you do about it? Unfortunately, if you see something, you gain a sort of liability or a responsibility to do something. It's very complicated what you have to do. We're going to be discussing that in the future. Okay. Next, should you date coworkers? All right. Show of hands. Oh, is it okay to date coworkers? Yes. No, how many no's? Fewer. A lot of maybes.
How co are we talking here?
It depends how big the company is. Interesting. Yes. A company of 5 people might be problematic to say.
Well, if it's a company of, like, say, 50,000 employees and they're just kind of working near you, then it's more okay.
Okay, larger company, the larger you're saying the proportionality applies. If a larger company becomes more okay. Thank you. Yes.
It depends on what sections they're working in, if one's a supervisor or another. As long as their chain of commands are relatively separate, then there isn't a big deal. The military works it where if you end up getting married to someone next to them, they'll move you to another squadron where you can still do the same job and you're still co-workers and see each other once in a while, but you're not going to have an influence on each other's professional activities.
Yeah, career. Usually that's expressed as whether there's a power relationship between the two people. One's in a position of more power than the other, and you could abuse them essentially. Okay, so that's usually what happens. And you're right, an organizational structure can affect power relationship. Was there any other comments? I'm sorry, there's lights in my eyes. At OSU, this is an issue too. I mean, let me, I've never asked this question before, I'm going to do it. How many say it's okay for a professor to date an undergraduate student? Yes or no? You're not in my class, let's say. I'm not talking about me. We're not talking about me. We're not going there. No. What do you think? You're all saying, I'm not seeing anybody saying yes. It's okay. Yes.
You're saying not in their class?
Not in their class. And likely never will be. You're okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
How many people are okay with that? Okay, it becomes different, right? But if you're in the ECE department as a professor, you're wanting to date an ECE undergraduate, ooh, it's getting dicier, right? Because you're closer in a power relationship, right? It gets really dicey. Now, if you're in the same class, I think it's pretty clear. Okay? So these things can get complicated, of course. Is it a good idea to date the boss? No, it's not. That's what you people are saying. The people have been talking about a power relationship. If you date the boss, they have a power relationship over you. If you're willing to accept that, maybe, yes.
I think I saw a poster in the weekend for what we call horrible bosses, and that was one of the 3 relationships that was really important to avoid.
Yeah. Dating the boss can be a hugely bad idea. Unfortunately, it happens, or fortunately, depending on your perspective. Love sometimes happens whether you want it to or not. So this is complicated, okay? This stuff happens in reality in the end. Groupthink. So in engineering, this happens. There's only within group discussions, and you form sort of a parochial perspective for technology, ethical, or social justice issues. There's illusions of invulnerability, illusion of morality, that we're doing this right, self-censorship, illusion of unanimity, dissent may not be allowed, a sort of not letting in outside views. There's classic examples in politics of groupthink, where the most recent one would probably be the one Colin Powell was accused of groupthink in his group that was assessing whether Iraq had nuclear weapons. That was studied and given this name. So, when you're in an engineering group trying to work out something, and somebody's always like saying, "No, I don't agree." I mean, what this is saying is tolerate it. See if there's a nugget of wisdom in what they're saying or truth. You need diversity, and that means diversity in every sense. Gender, race, everything. And you need to get the inputs from surveys, for instance, for market research, a critical evaluation of that, to know what the customer thinks, because ultimately that's who's buying the thing that you're making. Now, whistleblowing. So what is whistleblowing? So it is defined as disclosure by an employee outside approved channels to a group that may take action. A topic is a significant moral problem, for instance, public safety. There's a whole bunch of cases. I mentioned a few here. Here's one case with Virginia Edgerton. This is a woman that was a computer science engineer. She worked as a system analyst for the New York City Police Department in 1977 when the department was implementing a new computer system called Promise. Edgerton was on the Promise team. When she learned that the system was going to be installed on the same server that ran Sprint, an online police car dispatching system, she questioned whether this should be done before investigating whether running both systems on the same server would impact the Sprint response time. Okay. Her supervisor did not give her concern any weight and proceeded with the project. Edgerton went to the IEEE for advice and support in resolving this potential safety issue. So this is a classic case in engineering ethics. She complained to the boss. Actually, she complained to the boss's boss. Nobody listened to her. There was an impression given in the write-ups that back in those days, because she was a woman, she wasn't listened to as much. She said, forget it. She went outside the organization, went to IEEE. Person that wrote the case up and she went to was Stephen Unger. That guy at the top was listed. So this was a pretty clear case where it was good that she did that. I wanted to show you this cartoon. I like this. If you refuse to do something about our product safety law, I will be forced to contact our CEO. That's a shout to the pointy hair guy. Try it. This email will make him drop everything and call me. So here's the CEO. Hundreds will die, blah, 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 whatever. Forward that message to the pointy hair guy. Yeah, exactly. Like something's going to get done. So some guidelines for whistleblowing. It's said to be permissible and obligatory if actual or potential harm is serious. In other words, it's not a minor issue, minor technical design issue. It's a major issue. Okay. Its harm is documented. In other words, for sure it will do harm, and you have sort of data or technical results that would show that the harm will happen. The concerns have been reported to superiors, If you do not get satisfaction, explore other organizational channels to the top, for instance, an ombudsperson, and a reasonable hope that whistleblowing will help prevent or remedy the harm. Okay, so it's basically saying it's serious. You can document it. You complain to the superiors. You're not satisfied, and you think it will help. Then go ahead, go to the Columbus Post-Dispatch, whatever. Okay. Example we discussed earlier was a Challenger case. In that case, the problem was Roger Beaujolais, who was the key guy to do the whistleblowing because he worked for Morton Thiokol on the O-ring, said, I didn't think it would help. He had all the other criteria, but he just didn't think it would help. He thought his time was better spent. He was racing the clock because they had a launch schedule. He said he felt his time was better spent fighting it internally to try to fix the problem. Okay. Whether he was right or wrong about that, no one will ever know. Okay. Some common sense procedures. Except in a rare emergency, work through channels. Know your rules for making appeals within your organizations and be prompt in objecting. Be tactful, low-key, and avoid getting emotional. In other words, stay professional, focus on the objective issues. You don't want it to start coming off as if you're blaming the bosses for the problem. Okay? You just want to focus on the technical details and the connection to hurting people. You want to be considerate of feelings and avoid personal criticisms. Some engineers that I've met are actually very poor at that last one. I think we all know what I'm talking about. There are engineers who just couldn't care less about feelings, right? And will criticize harshly. Don't care what anybody feels, okay? You've got to be careful with that, because if you're saying the wrong things and you're directing them as accusations against people, they can get emotional, and I don't care what's right or wrong. They're not going to do what you're saying. They're going to move against you, okay? Period. So you got to be really sensitive. Some other common sense approaches: keep the supervisors informed with discussions and memos. Be accurate and document. Consult trusted colleagues, is competent professional engineers that you're working around. Before going outside, consult an ethics committee of a professional society. This is, I think, a little unrealistic. In the old days, this used to be able to happen, but for instance, I found out that IEEE will no longer take ethical complaints. They got themselves in a mess because they don't want to get in the middle of legal proceedings. Okay, so you might want to think about consulting a lawyer too to take care of yourself. Okay, BART. Bay Area Rapid Transit System. It's in operation today in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a train system that's links San Francisco with cities across the bay. It was built with tax funds. It had tremendous cost overruns and delays that were attributed to the introduction of innovative methods for communicating with individual trains and controlling them automatically. This is all computer run. Okay, it was an automation of the train system. So plain fail-safe operation was replaced by complex redundancy schemes that are electronic. So the fail-safe systems have a train stop if something breaks down. Redundancy tries to keep trains running by switching faulted components to alternate ones. So the opportunity to build a rail system from scratch, unfettered by old technology, was considered as great. We want to do the best, latest things for the Bay Area, okay? And, the engineers rose to that challenge. Engineers, however, felt that too much experimentation was done without safeguards. So these three engineers came forward. Hertzvong, Bruder, Blankensee. They had identified dangers only recognized by management much later. Unsafe automatic train control, testing it and operator training was inadequate. Computer software problems were pervasive. Insufficient monitoring of contracts occurred. So they wrote a number of memos and voiced their concerns to employers and colleagues, even though none of them were specifically assigned to the safety of the train control system. This Hertzvong wrote an anonymous memo, so he took his own name off it, summarizing the problems and distributed it to nearly all levels of management. Okay, so that's a little bit against the whistleblowing procedures. I mean, you usually would attach your name to it. So he decided he was not going to attach his name to it. So the memo argued for a new systems engineering department, in fact, to fix these problems. The management felt the memo was suspicious and unprofessional since it was unsigned. And they sort of have a point. And since it's done outside normal channels of accountability also. In other words, what he did is he not only sent the memo to his own boss, but layers up, okay? So management felt that Hortzvang wanted to be the manager of the new department. So they felt that, they were kind of guessing who sent this and said, this guy must want to be the manager of the new department and get a raise. So the 3 BART engineer contacted members of BART's board of directors. So they went over the internal people's heads, okay? When their concerns were not taken seriously by the lower levels of management. The management perspective on this was that they acted improperly since they did not go through an approved organizational channel. So to get an independent view, the engineers contacted a private engineering consultant. One BART director, Helix, listened and agreed to contact top management while keeping the engineers' names controversial. So finally, somebody off the board of directors is going to do something about this and tell these people. So he released the unsigned engineer's memos and the consultant report to local newspapers. He didn't go back to the management. So the board of directors guy blows the whistle. I mean, the engineer lost control of it. Okay? All right. The management sought to locate the source of Helix's information, and the engineers lied about the involvement. Like, what? Us? Okay. So at Helix's request, the engineers later agreed to reveal themselves by going in front of the board of directors and try to remedy the safety problems. But they are unable to convince the board of those problems. It sounds a little bit like Challenger case. Okay? You're unable to convince the management that was going to schedule the flight of the Challenger. In this case, they're unable to convince. In this case, sometimes, you not only have to be competent as an engineer, you got to know where your audience is at. So you communicate effectively with them, okay? And that sometimes is extremely tricky. So the engineers are given the option of resigning or being fired for insubordination, incompetence, lying to superiors, causing staff disruptions, failing to follow understood organizational procedures. Subsequent studies prove the safety judgments of the engineers were sound, okay? Changes in automatic control for the train were made, in fact. Okay? The engineers sued BART, but they settled out of court. Okay? So you probably would view that as the engineers winning. IEEE filed a friend of the court document noting in the engineer's defense the engineer's professional duty to promote the public welfare as stated in here, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So this is a very unusual case. I like it because what it does is it shows you how messy things can be. They're trying to decide whether to whistleblow. And they're sending this information up the channels, etc. And then one of those persons sees it and they blow the whistle, doing something the engineers didn't necessarily want to do. Okay? So you have to be aware that you can kind of lose control of a situation. Do you agree with the following observations, or do you have others? Engineers should have been better prepared to present the case before the board of directors. They need to be able to absolutely convince them that there were safety problems. They should have been able to. There were safety problems in the end. So in a certain sense, the engineers failed in that case, right? Should not have sent an unsigned memo to all levels of management. It should have informed the boss, sent a signed memo, and then if not satisfied, they're justified to go to the board of directors. Okay? So keep your names on things. I mean, if you're saying it's true, why not? Well, the reason why not is get yourself fired, right? That's one of the fundamental problems with whistleblowing that holds people back. They want to whistleblow, it's the right thing to do, but they're like, oh, it's going to cause such a hassle for me. It's going to create me a lot of stress for me. It's going to get me fired. Okay, there could be legal action against me. So you have to be pretty brave to move forward on things like this. Okay, I want to leave a little time for a sentence question. We have 4 minutes. For those of you who have had an engineering job, describe unprofessional behavior you've seen in the workplace. Please do not use the names of people or companies. And please save descriptions of discrimination and women's issues for the end of the next lecture. Okay? Because I'm going to ask for those. I reserve the right to publicly speak or write about cases and will not pursue cases, only for education. If you want to, you can put your description on one sheet and your name on a separate sheet if you don't want your name associated with the description. All right? Thank you.